Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you doing? Oh, by the way, we had to get our own AB, right?
Hey, yeah, that's right.
Your shirt's on, right, Albert?
Exactly.
Yeah, my shirt's on. I hope I'm a little bit more stable. I just want to check on you, Rich. I want to make sure everything's okay 6 days out now. I mean,
Yeah, Albert! Yeah!
Wow.
Hey, and that's coming from somebody who knows. That's coming from somebody who knows what it feels like. I've been there. I 31-0 against Clemson in 2017.
It's all right.
So I've been there before.
It's okay, Albert. It's a first-place Big Ten season with a 42-point game against your alma mater. That's always up on the board, and it's going to be there for at least another, forever and ever. But, 300 days, another 300 days. It's okay. But I like that you come out firing, Albert. I just love that you have just zero chill and shame. Fantastic. Same as it ever was.
Yeah,
all right.
Well, we made some coaching changes in the aftermath. We'll see how all of that plays out.
Well, let's get to the task at hand here. About money, huh? Is that what this was about, or what?
Yeah.
Is that what this is?
I heard a little bit of your preamble there, and I just think it's this constant thought that, and I think a lot of times, coaches and players can convince themselves that when the guy gets into our environment, it's going to be different. And, I hesitate to say it's just about money, because if it's not one thing, it's the other with the guy. You know what I mean? So we can get down to the details, and we can talk about the injury and the disagreement over why he left the sideline, and where the truth is whether he was hurt. And we're going to hear different versions of that. But the truth is, Rich, it's just always something, And, if you want to go back to how he wound up blowing his way out of Pittsburgh, it was over losing a team MVP award to Juju Smith-Schuster, a guy who was in his position group room, won the team MVP, and that pissed him off sufficiently that he blew his way out of a place that he had been for 9 years. In Oakland, it was the weird thing with the helmet and then the feet and all of that. And then in New England, it was, basically publicly taking shots at ownership after he had been there for a total of 8 or 9 days. So, I think it's hard to look at this situation based on the history that's here and say that it's anything else but Antonio Brown being Antonio Brown.
And it's over, right? Or what's the aftermath of this? I mean, it's over in terms of them talking about it, but what is the aftermath of all this?
Well, I mean, let's do the player side first. I mean, I have to think this is the end of Antonio Brown's career.
Wow, that's really. Really?
I mean, like he said, he's going to get surgery, and when he comes back from surgery, he'll be what? I got to look up how old he is, but he's in his 30s. And look, I think you have to kind of look at each of these situations, and in the previous situations, you could maybe couch it one way or the other. In Pittsburgh, it's, he's sick of being there and he wanted a new start. In Oakland, you could say they weren't winning. In New England, you could say, well, that's a stringent environment. I mean, in Tampa, he won a Super Bowl there, right? Like, he had a chance to win another one. The quarterback, despite what he says, had his back 100% through everything and kept giving him opportunities and kept wanting to work him into the offense more. And Bruce Arians runs maybe the most player-friendly culture in the NFL, right? The players have a huge part in running that team. And I think if you're another team, you have to look at that and say, if it's not going to work, if it wasn't going to work there, like, who are we to say that it's going to work where we're at? I don't know how anybody could look at that and think, like, with a change of scenery, this guy's going to be different. So I just think it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for him to find a job anywhere after this. As for the team, I do think it's a blow. If this had happened last year, I don't think it would have been as big a deal. Like, last year, both him and Gronkowski were sort of like bonus weapons, because it was the COVID year, because those guys came in late, because everything was sort of, they did things to incorporate those guys, but they weren't really integrated into the offense. This time around, I mean, when they went through that month where they didn't win a game, Rich, and Brady kind of was up and down and struggled a little bit, a big part of that was that Gronk and AB were out, and so, I think both those guys have become such integral parts to what the Bucs are offensively because of their relationship with the quarterback, because the quarterback trusts them. And so, I think this year, you add, all of that I just said to the fact they're already down Chris Godwin. And I actually think on the football field, it's a pretty significant loss for the Bucs.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show, senior NFL reporter from the MMQB of Sports Illustrated on our program. So the quarterback that will grab the most headlines in the offseason that is essentially started for so many, who's it going to be? What do you got for me on that front? What do you crystal ball it? Is it Rodgers? Is it? I'll give you. Is it Deshaun Watson, Russell, Baker? What do you got for me on this?
I mean,
front?
I think it feels like maybe what we thought was going to happen last year might happen this year with some dominoes as far as the quarterbacks go. I actually think. I think the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. So
okay.
If the Packers win the Super Bowl, I think you've sort of subtly heard Aaron Rodgers' tone changing a little bit in several different places, like the way he talked about Brian Gutekunst. I think the appreciation, the emotion you saw after he broke Brett Favre's record, right? And kind of like how he had this appreciation for where he is and getting to play in Lambeau. And so I actually think there's a potential there that Aaron Rodgers does a new contract with the Packers and winds up staying there in 2022. So I'd say like Watson and Wilson will probably be the two. Watson obviously, I think his legal situation plays into everything. They've been waiting to move him, and I think he will be moved. And I think if there's clarity in the legal situation, there's going to be a huge market for Deshaun Watson out there. And then I think with Russell Wilson, maybe it plays out like things did with Matthew Stafford last year. Depending on what happens, with Pete Carroll and John Schneider there, I could certainly see them having a meeting and, kind of like I said, like what happened with Stafford in Detroit, they sort of negotiate a clean break. So then Wilson and Watson are out there. And then I think, on the kind of the secondary level, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo. The Derek Carr situation in Vegas is sort of interesting because next year will be a contract year for him. But I would think the Raiders try to lock up Derek Carr long term. So, I think you not only have like the big box pieces, like the guys like Wilson and Watson out there, but you also have, the second layer of quarterbacks that could wind up becoming available.
What is the plan for Baker Mayfield in Cleveland now?
I think the way that the Browns are looking at it, this is just my sense of it. Going into the year, it was, do we pay him at the top of the market? And part of the problem, Rich, is that there's no like B-level, quarterback contract out there to work off of. And so, that's why, a lot of these decisions have become yes or no. Do you believe the guy's a franchise guy or not? And if you do, you pay him at the top of the market. If you don't, then you wind up letting him go. And I think right now, if you're the Browns, you have a hard time wrapping your head around paying Baker Mayfield $40 or $45 million a year. And then I think if you're not going to do that, you got to ask yourself the very real question: can we go through the awkwardness of playing out his fifth-year option here, where it was already awkward a little bit this year, with some of the stuff that happened on Instagram and everything else. And so, my guess is, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, if we aren't willing to pay Baker $40 million a year, let's see if there's a quarterback out there that we are willing to give that money to. So, I think, the Browns will at least investigate Watson. I think they'll at least investigate Wilson, Rodgers too, if he winds up being out there. And, I think they view themselves as being in very much a win-now window, where it's, I think they feel like their roster's right there. And so, the question becomes, can they land one of those guys? And if they can't, do they stick with Baker, or do they maybe go with some sort of Band-Aid for right now, where it would be a little bit less awkward than bringing Baker back in a contract year, and maybe that winds up being somebody like Jimmy Garoppolo?
Wouldn't it be, what's the word, ironic or interesting, however you want to put it, that the Browns would do that but can't land one of those guys because the Steelers do, right? Is that the Steelers' plan too? What you just kind of laid out?
Steelers, yeah. I mean, I don't think the Steelers have really. I don't think the Steelers know exactly what they're going to do yet. I think part of the issue the Steelers have is They're depleted to some degree from a draft pick standpoint, and their cap is a little bit of a mess going into next year. And so, I think with the Steelers, the question is, do you want to do like a full reset at the position and draft a rookie and start over that way? Do you want like a Band-Aid, and maybe that's like a Ryan Fitzpatrick or someone like that, like a Jimmy Garoppolo? Or do you want to take the big swing? And the big swing, again, would require capital that they don't necessarily have right now. Maybe they can create it, but they don't have it right now. And that hasn't generally been their way. And so, I think it feels to me like the most likely scenario, like what they would like to do is go into the draft and find a rookie to replace Ben Roethlisberger with. The issue with that, of course, is that, you look at this year's group, Rich, and there's not like a Trevor, like last year, the five guys, right? Like Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, Lance, and Jones. Like, I don't know that there's a single quarterback in this year's draft that would crack that group. Like, whoever the number one guy is, I think would probably have gone sixth last year. And so, that's going to be the question for a lot of these quarterback-needy teams, which could drive up the market for the veterans. Is there a rookie out there that we think can be a real difference maker for us? And, we'll see if Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral and Malik Willis and, all these guys that are going to be going into the draft can work over the 3 or 4 months to come to drive their stock north. But as it stands right now, I think there are going to be more than a few teams that are going to go into the draft cycle without a single first-round grade on any of the quarterbacks.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. And on the coaching front, an interesting name that might be interested in getting a gig is Jim Harbaugh, interested in going back to the league where he had 44 wins and took a team to the Super Bowl and almost won it, in the same league where Urban Meyer is now the standard for the biggest triple Lindy flop and biggest blown opportunity in the history of coaching. So, no, it's okay. It's everything I just said is factually correct.
It is. It's true. It's true. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Is Harbaugh he interested, and do you think that interest could be mutual?
Yeah. Here's what I think, Rich. I know. What I know about Jim from having covered him all those years ago. When he was in San Francisco, he tends to hold grudges, and I don't know that I don't know that he was as happy about taking the pay cut last year,
right,
as he may have let on. And so if he can make Michigan squirm, and I'm not saying the school in general, I don't mean it that way, but the people who, if he can make the people who made him take the pay cut squirm a little bit, and maybe make them a little uncomfortable, and then wind up getting a new contract out of it. I don't think that'd be a horrible result for him, right? And maybe, as part of that, you work in some sort of NIL deal where we're going to do this and this and this to help you get players, everything else. So I think that's one possibility. The other possibility is that he was sufficiently pissed off last year where, he does want to look around. And by the way, when there was a question about his future last year, I can tell you, intermediaries put his name in front of several NFL teams. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't interest then, but based on how he's bounced back this year, I think, at least from a team or two, there'll at least be a curiosity. So, we'll see. I can't tell you what his intention is, but I certainly don't think he's done much to shoot down the idea of this possibility. And, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks here to see what happens with him, because obviously he had great success at the NFL level. And I do think that, to some degree, getting that close to winning a Super Bowl and not getting there does leave a bit of an unfinished business for him at the NFL level.
And then you had a great piece this week about Trevor Lawrence, because amongst all the many reasons why Urban Meyer flamed out in such a spectacular faceplant fashion, Albert, from, kicking his kicker to, not taking the flight back from Cincinnati, and what he was doing in Ohio after not taking the flight back from Cincinnati, is that the one guy who was evaluated is the most surefire prospect coming into the NFL is leaving his first season in the NFL essentially, potentially not able to be evaluated, Albert. And so you had quite a piece on that. I want to give you the floor on what you found out about what people think of Trevor Lawrence's first year and viability moving forward for Jacksonville.
Yeah, sure. So I talked to a number of different scouts, coaches that have played against him this year. So these are guys that have actually looked at him and evaluated the tape. And there were obviously you're taking everything into account when you're doing that. So the first thing all these guys said is the situation around him wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do enough creatively to get the most out of him. The skill talent around him wasn't very good. Losing DJ Chark, was a big deal because they didn't have a ton to threaten defenses with to begin with. So there's all that. But there were also some things that I think at least raised some concern. The first was the ability to process and how quickly he sees the field. And, I think part of the evaluation at Clemson wasn't that he couldn't do it. It was that you didn't see him do it. And that at Clemson, the offense is sort of simple, and it was designed to have the quarterback get the ball out really quickly. And he really wasn't going through full field reads there. And so, what teams had sort of noticed watching him is, man, he's a little slower processing than we thought he would be. He's not seeing it as fast as we would like. Now, that's something that can be learned over time, but it's something that definitely showed up. The processing wasn't as fast as you'd hope it would be coming out of college. Then the second thing was, his athleticism hasn't translated to the NFL the same way some people thought it would. And you watched him enough at Clemson to know, Rich, he was a real run threat, he made a lot of plays with his feet at the college level.
Yeah.
And
that 31-0 win, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Oh, that was Deshaun. My bad. Okay, yeah, my bad.
It was the second loss to Clemson, but we did wind up getting him.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that ability to create on your own, to create yardage, to escape, to buy time to throw, it just hasn't translated as much. And maybe that's just not being as comfortable with what you're doing and everything around you the same way he was at Clemson. Or maybe it's just it's everybody's bigger and faster and stronger around you, and it's a little harder to get away than it was. So I think if you add all of it up, Rich, is and look, I'm the first to say, I remember I talked to scouts about him for 2.5 years, and it was always this guy is the next, Peyton Manning, John Elway, Andrew Luck's in that category. What I'm getting back now is, he's a little more raw than we thought. So the talent's there, but when you add up everything that I just said, it's just he is sort of more of prospect than ready-made player, if that makes sense.
So who gets the golden ticket that Urban torched? Who gets the golden ticket, you think, to coach him?
To coach him?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, part of the problem, Rich, is that they are keeping their general manager in place. And, that issue has already come up, in my conversations over the last 2 weeks. There are coaches who flat out aren't going to go there because Trent Baalke's there, and that's with a generational type of prospect in Trevor Lawrence at the position.
Wow.
And so that's part of the issue right now is they're kind of sorting through things, and it's there are coaches that just flat out aren't going to go there because of what happened with Trent in San Francisco, and because he has a certain reputation of, let's call it what it is. People think he stabbed a bunch of people in San Francisco in the back, and that it's already happened in Jacksonville some too. So, if they're going to hang on to Trent as the general manager, they're going to have to sort of overcome that with whoever they hire as their coach. Now, I will say this, one thing I have gotten back already is they do plan on making this a pretty extensive search, and that last year, they're going to do the opposite of what they did last year, where last year we knew what they were doing from the start, and they targeted one guy, and they went and got him. This year, I think they really want to go into it and talk to a lot of people, and they've already talked to a lot of people, and kind of go through a full process and make a decision that way. And, two of the names that you hear early on, and guys that have already talked to them are Jim Caldwell and Doug Peterson. And obviously both those guys have extensive history working with quarterbacks, so that would be a plus. But I think more than anything else, finding somebody who can come in and sort of calm things down in what's been a pretty chaotic year is job number one.
Well, Albert, I appreciate you calling in and accepting my invitation to come on, not only because I always appreciate you and your information is impeccable and the way you delivered is terrific, but you were also curious to check on me about me in the last 6 days, even though we've been texting nonstop in the interim. So thank you, Albert. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Albert.
I'm glad you're doing well.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Albert. But you knew that already.
Hey, in all seriousness,
yeah.
Congrats on a great year. Like, seriously, like that. I as somebody who knows how it feels to go through years like that, congratulations.
Right.
I'm sure it was a fantastic year.
Right. Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show after hitting a triple with his information. Very good. Thank you, Albert. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I've been home before.
Goodbye, Albert. Thanks for calling. Albert Breer, everybody. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.